There are men that are probably better at nurturing than their wives. And so why wouldn't you as a couple say, you know what, in our family, the husband is the better nurturer. So we're going to let him take care of that. Welcome to The Latter-day Lens, your home for faith-promoting, unscripted discussion of current events. If you'd like to contact us, you can send us a text message through the link in the show notes. You could also email us, latterdaylens@gmail.com. If you want to know more about the show, please visit our website, latterdaylens.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Latter-day Lens. I'm your host, Matt. With me, as always, is Shawn, and joining us again is Porter. Porter, it's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, I want to apologize.
Well, wait, Matt, before you apologize, I wanted to tell Porter how beautiful your audio sounds. Thank you, Porter, for making your audio sound so good.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it when you put in the effort to, I don't know, have a microphone and not cook breakfast while you're recording a podcast. So last week, I actually did a really good job of editing the audio, getting all of the levels balanced just right. But there's a group that edits the podcast for us, and they had uploaded an audio file, and I thought I had replaced it. And it wasn't until this would be Friday night I was listening. I was like, whoa, why is the audio so bad? So if you downloaded the podcast before Friday night, you would have heard some really bad stuff. But if you want to hear good stuff.
When you say bad stuff, Matt was talking naughty. That's what he means by bad stuff.
No. I don't know if I was talking naughty. Like, you couldn't even hear half the stuff Mark was saying.
Yeah, the audio quality was bad. You did fix it, which is the sad thing, but it's up now. So
yeah, go back and listen to it. Like, if you don't like changing your volume up and down as you listen to the podcast, I promise you, I have audio files where they're fixed, and I messed up. I thought I had changed the audio file, and I didn't. But I did Friday night, so now it's really good. My wife was listening to it with me, and she said, wow, Mark was really bad. That's the listener comment for the week. Wow, Mark was really bad. And Mark,
hopefully Mark feels guilty enough to go invest in a microphone and not cook dinner while he talks to us.
I love Mark. Listen, if you know, the only requirement to be on this podcast is I have to love you. And I love Mark. He is a great man, and he loves the Lord. And some of you out there say, hey, I want more MAGA in the podcast. Why don't you get me somebody on the podcast who loves Donald Trump and is willing to defend him, not in the silly way Mark does, but in like a real and meaningful way? And I'm sorry, I can't find those people. As far as I can tell, I can't find faithful members of the church that are willing to publicly defend Donald Trump.
I mean, so I've got a couple, but you don't know them in order to love them. And so, we could try a few if we wanted.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, maybe we will. I don't know that we need that. Porter, do you think we need more of that in the podcast? More MAGA-loving hosts?
I don't know. If you want more views, it sounds like maybe.
I mean,
I don't want it.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. I'm going to say we're pretty middle of the road. We're pretty authentically real as people here, right? Of course, there's going to be a few outliers to the left and to the right, but, I guess we could try and find them.
I have to tell you, Levi, every time he listens, does not feel like we adequately represent the left very well in this podcast. So if you want more MAGA, I promise you there's people on the left that want more on the left. And I'm really sorry. Like, that's not the purpose of the podcast, to make sure that every extreme view or unextreme view is represented. We're just going to talk about important issues from a faith-promoting perspective. And it's informed. It's informed good content.
Yeah.
Levi wrote in a comment. This was from a while back. He said, Mark raised a good point. If someone has been here for 30 years, why didn't they fill out the paperwork to become legal? I think that's facetious. I don't think he actually thinks that was a good point.
Yeah. Well, when I read that question, I was thinking, wow, I am so happy someone asked this question genuinely. And then you said it was Levi. And I think Levi's teeing us up.
Yeah, he's just trying to poke the bear. Shawn, what do you think? Why do you think somebody might live here for 30 years and not fill out the paperwork to become legal? Let's see. Let's list the reasons. Too busy, expensive. They don't know what the paperwork is.
Oh no, wait. These are part of the reasons, but I think this goes to a fundamental misunderstanding that most people have about the United States immigration system, you would assume as a rational person that it would be fair that we would let people in unless there's a good reason not to let them in. And so that you could just go, if you're like a hardworking person who's been here for a long time, you could just go, pay the money, which it is expensive, and take the time and do that and fill out the paperwork. But the reality is inversed. The assumption in the U.S. immigration system is that we are not letting you in unless you meet a very certain criteria to fit in a certain visa category, of which there are many, and then you have to be lucky enough to get one of the, limited number of visas that they give out every year. It's a dense and complicated system, but the reality just is that most people do not qualify for a visa, and nobody qualifies for a visa that's currently in the United States without documentation. You can't apply for a visa from within the country. You have to, from without the country, either apply for a family-based visa if you have family here. If you don't have family here, an employer has to apply for you. They have to prove to the Department of Labor that a U.S. citizen couldn't take your job, which is an incredibly expensive and difficult process for your employer to do. And then they, on your behalf, have to send a Form I-40 to the Department of State to request a visa, and then it's going to get denied because there aren't enough visas to go out for that. And then everyone just wasted their time and money.
Dude, we need Porter on whenever Levi brings in fake facetious comments. That was great, Porter. That was awesome. And if that's all true, I'll believe you. Like, I believe you, Porter. That sucks. Like, come on, man. Like, make the process easier. There's got to be a way. Like your first comment, if the purpose is let's just keep criminals out or nefarious characters, but let's give the blessings of America to everyone, which should be the attitude. Then make it easier. That's crazy.
Not only that, it's not like you can just show up at the immigration office and say, hey, I would like to fill out the paperwork. Can you help me do that? Because number one, they don't list addresses that you can go to. Like, try to find their address. It'll give you some P.O. box in Washington, D.C. or something like that. You can't call them on the phone and ask them how to do it. The only way that you can figure out how to do it is you have to go through this process where you request an appointment. And then you have to wait 2 or 3 months for the specific appointment time that they gave you. And then when you show up, they're going to say, you don't have any of the proper documentation. Then you say, well, how do I get all that proper documentation? And they're like, it was on the website. You should have
So
read
you're
that
going
in
to say
advance.
too late, and then they arrest and deport you.
Okay,
In the current environment.
But to just now, since Matt, you complained or people complained about having the MAGA side represented, wouldn't the MAGA side or wouldn't logic also say, well, wait a minute, I know people who go through that process and become American citizens through the legal process. I know people, and they weren't patient and they got in line and they actually did the work. Isn't that fair to say that those people aren't any smarter or
they have lawyers? Everyone I know who did that had a lawyer help them either pro bono or they forked out a lot of money for that lawyer. And if you're in another country and you say, help me find a lawyer, odds are you're going to find a scammer who takes your money and doesn't actually give you the legal help you paid for.
Okay, I'm going to ask my friends who went through the process if they use lawyers, and I'll report next week. If that's the case, if that's the case, that's an interesting nuance. If it's not the case, and you're wrong, Matt,
then you can tell me, and I'll be like, wow, I was wrong. I feel horrible.
Yeah, most of the people I know who immigrated here legally either did it a long time ago when it was a little bit easier, or more recently, they're either here on a non-immigrant visa, a temporary visa for students or temporary agricultural workers,
refugee status.
Don't even get me started on the H-2A nonsense. The H-2B. A lot of them are here on non-immigrant visas that they're not allowed to stay. There's no path to citizenship. You can come here for a certain amount of time. Usually those are your employer. Before they were your employer, they just need more workers. There's not enough people in the labor force in the United States, so they go through this very expensive and difficult process, either the perm, if they're trying to get immigrant workers, but more common is the temporary labor certification, to prove all this so that they're allowed to try to recruit foreign workers. And then there are whole agencies that take care of this whole process. So I lived in North Florida. There was a big aerospace engineering company down there, I would open bank accounts all the time for people from all over the world that they would recruit. They're all going to be coming here legally because that company needs them and brought them here. But if you live somewhere else and you just want to come here, very, very different story.
Yep. Okay, first topic. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, listener Levi, for texting us.
Thank you very much, Levi. I sit around waiting all day for someone to ask me that question.
That's a great answer, Porter. That was awesome.
Porter's
dude.
like, I'm ready. Okay, so first up on the thought provoker, the Department of Justice recently published some missing Epstein files that include allegations that Trump may have sexually assaulted a teenager when she was between 13 and 15 years old. 2 weeks ago, Google searches for Trump and Epstein hit an all-time high, but since the U.S. began bombing Iran, public interest in the Epstein files is way down. Republican Representative Thomas Massie tweeted that bombing a country on the other side of the globe won't make the Epstein files go away. The Trump administration has given at least 5 different explanations for why the bombing in Iran started last week, but they've never said it was to divert attention away from the Epstein files. So here's the question. What is the real reason that the Trump administration is bombing Iran?
Okay, so you don't want us to talk about political red herrings and distractions in the way that politicians often use different stories or different events to try and distract from their problems and their woes. You want to talk about Iran? Why we're in Iran?
No, actually, I think the reason we're bombing Iran is because Trump knew that they had to release these Epstein files that show that he was alleged to have sexually assaulted a teenager, and what better time to release those files than when we're bombing Iran and all the news is focused on Iran? So I actually think that Thomas Massie is right. I agree with the Republican in this case. But I don't want to make you like, if you think there's a better reason or a more logical reason why it is than that, I don't want to force you down that pathway. But with the question, I thought I was pretty clear. I think it's because he wants us to stop talking about his name in the Epstein files. And so why not bomb Iran? But maybe there's a better reason why. Maybe one of those other 5 reasons is the true reason and not this one. What do you think? Do you think it's a red herring, Shawn? Do you think it's not? What do you think it is?
I mean, what are you basing that on? What's your evidence?
I'm basing that on
like,
the way that
what of the other 5 reasons do you think are closest to being true or not true? For example, I'm assuming one of the reasons is the influence that China and Russia have in Iran is it bolsters them to continue to seek an aggressive stance against our allies. And so let's just take that out.
I think the next most likely explanation is Benjamin Netanyahu knows how to manipulate Donald Trump. And Netanyahu wanted to bomb Iran and take it. I think that the Israeli intelligence said, hey, here's a chance to take out a lot of leaders in Iran, and we're going to do this with or without you. And Trump was like, well, I would rather take the credit than have you take the credit. And so I think the next most likely is there was an opportunity to kill the leadership in Iran, and Trump couldn't pass it up or let Netanyahu take the credit for that. He wanted the credit. That's the next most likely.
Would you like that reason better than the first?
No, I don't like either of those reasons.
Okay, what's the reason that you would like? Because last week I was surprised to hear you pretty supportive of the Iran war that's just happened.
I don't think I was supportive.
I asked you your opinion a little bit, and you're more like, it's for the people, man. They're freeing the people. Now they have a chance to set up their own democracy, and it sounded kind of like...
I think that's what you said. I think you said it was to help them.
I may have misread you, but the feeling I got was you're fine with what's going on. And I usually look to you to at least start my opinions in a political situation. So I was like, okay, all week I'm going to be like open-minded about Iran. So, Porter, what do you think?
What do you think is the reason, Porter?
Well, I think, first of all, I have a moral obligation because I recently did an assignment for a certain professor in which I wrote an essay about conspiracy theories and how they impact how the development and the precipitation of conspiracy theories is harmful to democratic institutions.
Nice.
That was your position on that paper?
I took the position, that it is harmful and it's wrong to do that. I think that's part of the reason why. Part of the reason why the Trump administration is in this messaging predicament, they have lacked messaging discipline. Like, I think this is a consequence of that. They've never really been on the same page. And I think their strategy has depended a lot on the propagation of conspiracy theories. With the 2020 election and January 6th, and with immigrants, and with the Middle East, and with Russia, and all these things, the administration is constantly pumping out conspiracy theories. And they know very well that they are very effective at, they're not easily dismantled by like actual evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think while the conspiracy theory is attractive, that
you're saying it's a conspiracy theory. This Epstein.
It's the definition of a conspiracy theory. As attractive as it is, I think the more likely explanation is just we have a very close allied relationship with Israel, who has a vested interest in killing all the leaders in Iran. And that relationship, I think, has a lot to do just with domestic politics. Like, the big evangelical Christian voter bloc of the Republican Party really, really cares about us really being close to Israel. It's become a very important part of being a Republican in America, is that you need to support them. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Well, Matt, don't you yearn for the yesteryear of the Republican hawk party that would go out and be the police of the world and make the world a safer place? Do you or do you not?
I do not.
You
I do not yearn
too.
for that. Okay, if Russia invades Ukraine, yes, I think we should defend them. Iran posed no threat to us in any way at all. We were in the middle of negotiations with Iran. We had a meeting scheduled with Iran where they were going to go before the IAEA and finalize the agreement for Iran to dismantle their nuclear program. And we bombed them and killed their leadership on Saturday. You don't end a meeting on Friday and say, we've had very productive negotiations, and then bomb them the next day when you have a meeting scheduled for 3 days later on.
I mean, you could also argue, though, Matt, that like none of us are war experts or government officials. You could also argue that the success of what they just performed was genius timing. You know what I mean? Like, if it's working, right? They are winning with decisive, like, no losses on our end except for 6 poor souls.
Did you hear when Trump said that we might have killed the people we were hoping that would take the next leadership after Ayatollah? We accidentally killed not only some people we thought that were kind of on our side, we blew up a school with 140 Iranian schoolgirls in it. And that was U.S. missiles that did that.
Let me ask you this, Matt. If a year from now, Iran has truly democratic elections.
Oh, Shawn.
No, what? Why not? This is a good question. If a year from now there are truly democratic elections and the people of Iran, and there's a huge block of Iranians who yearn for the 60s and the 70s or whenever they had their real,
they didn't have democracy in this. They had a Shah. That's why they overthrew the Shah. He was a dictator just like Ali Khamenei is. He was just not an Islamic dictator. The Shah wasn't like Mr. Love and Peace and Freedom.
Okay, then I'll accept that. Let's say they do successfully establish a democratic election and they vote someone in who's secular, or then will you be like, oh, well, despite the reasons, it was a good move because the people of Iran now have freedom and they're not constantly trying to kill their neighbors and America.
If this leads to democracy in Iran, that would make me happy. If it happens in a year from now, I will be in shock. I think that the second coming of Jesus Christ is more likely to happen within a year than a democratic, peaceful society in Iran.
Okay, so you don't trust or believe in the people of Iran, Shawn, to be able to set this.
Do you remember George W. Bush on the aircraft carrier in Iraq that said "Mission accomplished"?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, the exact same thing happened in Iraq. We went in Iraq, we captured Saddam Hussein, we gave them freedom. We were like, woohoo, this was so easy. And then what happened in Iraq, Shawn? There was a counterinsurgency and there was a prolonged war. Why would we think that anything different is going to happen in Iran? They have a paramilitary group there that's in control of all of their ballistic missiles. So the fact that they're not shooting at the United States right now doesn't mean that we've defeated them. It means they're waiting for the right opportunity to strike.
Okay,
And
so
this
you
isn't the
feel
best time.
so you feel like just like
I don't
Iraq
think
or
I don't think we
Afghanistan.
have missiles that can reach the United States.
No, they're going to hit us in Europe, or they'll hit us in
Yeah.
Turkey, or they'll hit us in they're going to bring us into a war in some way, some kind of a protracted war. Not only that, but all of the missile defense that we're using to protect Israel right now has been moved away from Taiwan, has been moved away from Ukraine. So that means that the missile defense that we've been using to protect Israel is no longer protecting other places. So
Well,
China, we know, wants to go into Taiwan.
Listen, I'm with Porter, and you need to abandon your crazy conspiracy theory talk and talk like this. Talk like this, man. You're giving like reasonable
Oh, I
arguments
see.
for how pragmatic or non-pragmatic this move was.
And there can, you can speculate a lot and theorize a lot about why they did it or why they're doing it or how it's going to end up. Like, I don't know. For me, none of the explanations, not even all the explanations, if they were all true, justifies even one like child dying for it. And there's been many.
Well, if it ends up in a year, same question to you, Porter. If in a year the people of Iran have a free election and actually elect someone that they choose, the people choose, and all of a sudden it's not a crazy, it's not a crazy regime and a dictatorship,
an Islamist, holy Islam.
Yeah, let's say it's not that anymore. It's a secular government that the people have now control over. Is it then worth it to you?
No, probably not still.
What the heck? Why?
This is like an unpopular opinion, Shawn, but
I have a child. Like,
yeah.
Would I sacrifice her life for democracy in Iran? No.
But if your child was Iranian, would you prefer she live under a dictatorship that will kill her for exposing 10% of her skin?
The thing is, though, they didn't kill her. We did.
Yeah, with our missiles. Yeah. So here's the challenge.
We paid for that.
Whenever we study Iran in comparative politics, and I try to explain the Iranian political system as it is now, do you know the best way to make sense of what their political system is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? They actually have a religion in Iran with 12, they call them clerics, but they're 12 people that are called of God who sit in a council. And that council of 12 people chooses the supreme leader, which is the same as what we have, where our 12 apostles choose the prophet.
Yeah.
And then they don't actually run the country politically. They decide which candidates are eligible to run for office, because they want to protect the spiritual nature of society. And so Iranians, many, many Iranians, look to the leadership of Iran as inspired leaders called of God. And if we say to them, yay, we killed your prophet, don't you want to replace him with someone you choose? They're going to say, we choose the people that are there because they're chosen by God.
Yeah, but the key understanding is how many, you said many of them accept these as religious prophets. How many of them don't? I mean, we see how many of them don't. We saw in the 60s and the 50s and the 40s how many of them don't. We see a few months ago how many go to the streets and get killed because they don't.
The government that's in Iran right now was chosen through a democratically elected process. There was a
dubious democratic process.
Yeah,
compared to what they had with the Shah was somebody chosen by us and the CIA.
Okay, so Matt, your opinion is give them free elections. They're just going to choose another Ayatollah.
Of course.
Okay, if that happens, then that's a really interesting outcome that we can discuss on the podcast, because that would be horrible. Yeah, but in the end, if they're democratically free, then you're going to eat crow, huh? Yeah.
I think all this is a good case for the argument of self-determination. Like the military, the United States military, is not a great tool for helping people establish stable democracy.
No, that's true, huh? History tells us that that's true, right?
Yeah, people who live in their own country, like if you get enough people in the country who really want it that bad, they'll make it happen.
So
and if you try to make it happen too early, they're not ready for it. It's not going to work.
Porter, you're saying look at Panama, look at Iraq, look at Libya, look at Afghanistan. That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great point. It's a great point. And so, Matt, I guess that would suggest that there are these ulterior motives other than freedom and spreading democracy. I mean, but can't you argue that it is probably like looking at Donald Trump, knowing how he behaves, if he did weaken Russia and China in this move potentially. So maybe that's his ulterior motive.
Do you know what I would do to weaken Russia? I would put troops in Ukraine and weaken Russia on the. I would,
Yeah.
if we like, everything he did in Iran, he could do to Russia if he wanted to do to Russia. We know where their nuclear weapons are kept. We could blow those up if we wanted to. That's nothing about weakening Russia and China, I don't think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is, back to our original question, is I think a big part of it is messaging. People get excited. Some people get excited to see violence and very successful violence. You know, I'm getting Fox News headlines about the details of like how we did a historic strike. It was only the second time ever that a nuclear powered submarine has blown up a warship. And
oh, jeez. And do you know that warship was just peacefully returning home from the Indian Ocean? Like they were doing war games in India,
but
and
people
we
get
blew them
excited
up
about this.
Yeah, that's crazy.
People read that and they're like, "Oh yeah, heck yeah, Pete Hegseth, he's the man."
Yeah. All right, I'm going to give Porter the points on this. Porter came to play. He was well informed, and he brought up an assignment he had to do in my class to make me feel stupid.
Let's see how well informed Porter is about Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, Daryl Hannah.
Who that is?
Yeah, I knew it.
She's a famous actress who is depicted in the fictional series Love Story about JFK Jr. She recently wrote an op-ed in which she states that the character Daryl Hannah, portrayed in the series, is not even a remotely accurate representation of her life, her conduct, or her relationship with John. The actions and behaviors attributed to her are untrue. She then details the many things that she has never done that are depicted in the television series. She is upset that she has received many hostile and threatening messages from viewers who believe the portrayal is factual. Now, setting the law aside, because I don't want to get into a legal argument about this, from a moral standpoint, is it wrong for a fictional series using the names of... Is it wrong to write a fictional series using the names of real life people?
Matt, for years and years and years, as I've taught thousands of kids about like preparing them for missions and on the podcast, I've told countless stories about this legendary missionary by the name of Matthew Miles, Elder Miles.
Well, you didn't make stuff up, right? Did you make up stuff?
I'm telling stories from my point of view, from my perspective, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling it from, I didn't consult you with your journals and your real life experiences. You didn't come and testify and tell the true story. I'm telling it as I remember it, as I saw it, as I believed it. And a lot of it could be untrue, right? Could it not?
Well, what they do in this show is they say it's fictionalized, so it doesn't matter if it's true or not.
I would never claim that.
Fiction.
Okay, so that's a category error because I would never claim that. I really truly believe this is true. So they're saying we made it up for entertainment purposes. In that case, she should sue them for defamation. She should for libel.
That's a legal argument, Shawn.
Dang it.
That's a legal argument. Right. So what they're saying is, look, the story is more interesting if there's a bad guy. And Daryl Hannah, you fit a good bad guy character, and so we're going to create this arc around you that really makes people hate you because it makes the story more compelling. And she's like,
that's dishonest.
That's my name, and I didn't.
That's immoral. That's selling out. That's the same thing that Taylor Swift does been making the movie she did, the music she did. I'm just kidding. She's selling out. Yeah, I think that's selling out. And
Jake Gyllenhaal was a good guy.
Okay, well, here's my take. Have you guys seen the Weird Al Yankovic biopic?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Okay. Yeah.
And they have Madonna in there, right?
Yeah. That's right. He dates Madonna. Like, everything in that biopic is Weird Al Yankovic fake, right? You start out watching the movie and you're like, oh, this is kind of fun. There's like Wolfman. That's a guy I know. Like, okay. And then by the end of the movie, you're like, this is so insanely absurd. There's no way this actually happened. But he's using real people. Character is based on real people doing things they never would have done, and it makes it for a really fun and entertaining movie.
Okay, I came into this with one thing, and you've expanded my scope a little bit. I think, and these are by no means discrete categories, but I think when you're producing any work that includes real people, it could be journalistic, it could be for entertainment, or it could be parody, which is a distinct form of entertainment. If it is parody, if it's to the extent like the Weird Al movie, where clearly this is meant to all be a joke, I don't think there are very many limits there to how far you can take it. Well, and it to still be morally okay. If it is for journalism, I think you have a really strong moral and ethical obligation to present whatever you're presenting as factually as you can, obviously. Then for entertainment, I think it's morally wrong to present, real people for the purpose of entertainment without consulting them and without them being okay with what you're putting out.
So it sounds like, Porter, you are a big fan of, that what you just described has been, the example for that is Elon Musk and his X platform. That is the exact policy that they have. As long as you disclose that this is satire, then go ahead and be Donald Trump all day long. As long as you disclose that this is for entertainment purposes, and as long as you disclose that it's journalism, then free speech, do whatever you want.
Yeah, but like I said, those are not discrete categories. Those lines can get blurry, and I think people should err on the side of caution when doing those things. Like it's very wrong what they've done to Daryl Hannah. You cannot be in the right while making a work that is like based on real events, but it's clearly not parody. People watch these historical fictions and get a lot of ideas about historical people from them, without her being okay with whatever it is that you're putting out. That's wrong.
Yeah, you're right. It violates Christian principles. You have to love your neighbor. This is profiting off of defaming your neighbor. So it's wrong. Morally wrong.
Witness is what this is.
Well, have you guys seen the movie Song Sung Blue?
No.
Okay. Well,
have you, Matt? Have you?
Of course, yeah.
No way, Matt. That's
the way.
Celine Dion and this guy are the only two musical bands you listened to in college.
Song Sung Blue is a touching show. It's not even about Neil Diamond. It's about a tribute band. It's about a Neil Diamond tribute band.
Oh, okay.
But what's beautiful is the love story between the two main characters of it. And again, anytime I watch a biopic, I have to try and Google what's true and what's not true.
Yeah.
And that's a story that most of that is true, but he has a son that's completely left out of the movie because it doesn't fit the story. It doesn't fit the thing they want to tell. And even though they paid him to be a consultant, he's like, I feel like you hurt me in some way by not including my story as part of that story.
Yeah.
And so,
wait, did he sue them? You said?
He's not sued them because he was paid to be a consultant on the movie.
You can't sue them you wouldn't be able to sue them anyway. They just didn't say anything about you.
He's just telling everybody, "Hey, I exist too, and I hate that movie."
It's like suing somebody for not being famous.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think it's morally wrong to use real people and tell a story and include, especially a fictional story. I think what's wrong in this case is that what they did was hurtful. And I think that's the morally wrong. It's not that they used Daryl Hannah. They created hurtful content about Daryl Hannah.
If they would have been and Daryl Hannah tried everything she could to make his life better, and it was a lie, you would have been like, that's better. That's okay. Make her look good. Lie about her looking good.
So again, we go to the Old Testament 10 commandments, right? The commandment is thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
There you go.
Okay. It's only a problem, though, if you're doing that in a mean way, right? If I tell everybody my neighbor's super cool and I like how he dresses.
Depends on your motives. No, that's not true, Matt, because if your motive was, I'm going to profit off making Daryl Hannah look bad, or I'm going to profit off of lying about Daryl Hannah looking good, your motive is profit-driven and not love your neighbor. And
you know what? I agree. A great example of this is the movie The Greatest Showman. Yeah. I hate that movie because... P.T. Barnum was a horrible, terrible, awful person who was abusive to his employees who were unpaid. So you can't really call them employees. Some of them were children. And then they make this story where he's Hugh Jackman and he's awesome and everyone loves him and he just sings and dances and gives people purpose in life.
Well said, Porter.
I think that's wrong. I think it's wrong.
It's
Thanks.
wrong to do a biopic where you make a bad person look good.
Yeah.
I agree with Porter. I
Oh,
totally agree with him.
man.
I totally agree.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give Porter and Shawn made the same argument, so I have to
Give it
split
to
my points.
give it to Porter because he dogged that dumb movie. I love it.
I hate that movie. And it's because it disservices the victims. There were people who were real victims of P.T. Barnum, and it spits in their face to make this movie where he's the good guy and he just uplifted them and made their lives beautiful.
Now, but Porter, let's see if we're honest throughout the whole thing. Now, Quentin Tarantino does an amazing thing by making movies about historical figures and makes them look even worse than they actually were, and gives very satisfying endings that didn't really
You're talking
happen.
about Inglourious Bastards?
Yeah,
Django Unchained.
and
Yeah.
that, and the Brad Pitt one, the story about what was it?
Oh,
the Marilyn
Burn
Manson
After
story.
Reading.
Once Upon a Time.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That one too. Yeah, how like those are such satisfying endings. Knowingly they're not true. But this is the same thing, right? It's they're making.
I don't think the same thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
Porter's
it's the
not
same
consistent.
thing because, like I said, the lines between parody and drama are blurry. I think you're pretty safe when it comes to like Hitler.
You can make him look worse than he was.
Yes,
Hitler had a lover. He had people that cared about him.
Didn't he kill her?
I don't know. We could bring Mark in. He could tell us all of.
Yeah.
If we need Hitler
Help us
information,
out.
Mark's the guy for us.
But then we wouldn't hear him because his audio would be so bad. So I'm satisfied with Porter.
I don't know. I like the idea that it's morally fine to embellish and talk about people in good ways. You just can't do it in bad ways.
No,
you
I think you're wrong. That can't be right, man.
I don't know. All right. Next topic. So after the close of the Senate Republican primary in Texas, for listeners who don't follow Texas politics, the Republican Senate primary, it's going to go to a runoff. It's going to be between John Cornyn, he's the incumbent, and Attorney General Ken Paxton.
This is just the Republican primary. This is not the general
Just
election.
the Republican. On the Democrat side, James Tallarico won the Democratic primary in Texas.
Okay.
So there are a lot of Republicans who are worried that if Ken Paxton becomes the nominee, it'll be really expensive to try to beat the Democrat in that Senate seat. So there's a lot of, I would call them establishment Republicans that would prefer to have Ken Paxton drop out and let the incumbent keep that seat. Well, recently Trump has announced that he will soon endorse a candidate. He then stated that he will be asking the candidate that I don't endorse to immediately drop out of the race. I remember people being upset that Kamala Harris became the Democrat nominee without going through a primary election process. So here's the question. Is it wrong for Trump to ask someone who is involved in a runoff to drop out of the race if they do not receive his endorsement? By the way, Ken Paxton today announced he would drop out if, and then he put all these demands out there, what the Republican Party would have to do. And the party's like, well, we're not doing any of that stuff.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
So I'll go first.
Is this like the happiest day in the life of a political scientist when stuff like this happens? Because you get to sit and analyze it and people are making decisions daily. This seems like your cup of tea.
Well, this stuff happens all the time. But I'm going to say there's nothing wrong about it. This is politics. The political parties choose the nominees they want to have as nominees. And so the idea that voters should somehow have a voice in who the nominee is just silliness. Like, that's not the way it is.
Now, hang on. Now, you always clarify this point as a political scientist, but you never judge this point. You never share with us, is this the best way to do it? You don't, is it?
I believe that it is the best way to do it because I believe that the political parties, we're not communist China where the political parties will tell you can't be a part of their party. But anyone who wants to can go be a part of the political party.
And on the other extreme, we're not a democracy.
Of course not. We're definitely not a democracy.
We're a democratic republic, which means we vote in people and we give them the power to make all the decisions
So,
right? Or no, Porter?
Go ahead, Porter.
Yes, but also... man, I take too many of Brother Miles' classes. Reading. Everyone go just read Hans Hassel. But we, yes, we do that. But also, we don't really have as much control as we think we do over the people who are allowed to run for those seats over the nominees. Because we have, first past the post, single member district elections, you will always only have two parties. It's a mathematical certainty. So since there are only two parties, two serious parties, you can have occasional anomalies, but since there are only two serious parties, those two parties can work within whatever bounds exist for them, which right now, that's no bounds. There are none. And I don't know, when I started to read the historical stuff about this, James Madison talking about in the Federalist Papers, we don't really need to worry about national parties because I don't think they'll be possible, is what he said. Our country's too big, it's too diverse. But then a couple of years after that, he himself started and was elected president under a national political party. So I think maybe some shrewd people in the beginning understood that this may be what happens in this system and set it up in a way that would allow them to exercise that influence.
Okay. So you guys are saying that the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, should play the political game and have this kind of influence, and that's okay.
Yes.
In fact, I did the research. Do you guys know what his percentage is in a primary election, a win rate when he endorses someone?
In a Republican primary?
Yeah.
It's got to be over 80%, right? Yeah.
95%.
Yeah.
Dude, that is crazy. And if that's the case, and if what you're saying is true, then don't be dumb. Go ahead and do it. Like, go and endorse your party's people. Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest issue most of us laymen, not you political scientist nerds, will take on this is, no, man, we need more say from the people, right? This whole representative stuff feels very undemocratic. But you're both teaching us and the world that, no, that's the better system. A democratic republic is a better system than pure democracy, because majority rule most of the time or oftentimes leads to ill-informed decisions and like bullies winning out, right?
Yeah. Do you know why you say that? Why you say you want more say in the election is because Andrew Jackson told you to. Before Andrew Jackson, they didn't have primary elections. They had, caucuses. They would just get together the members of Congress that were part of that party, and they would decide who their candidates would be. And then that resulted in Andrew Jackson getting kind of shafted at an election that, in all fairness, he probably should have won. What was it, John Quincy Adams?
Yeah. Yeah, Jackson did win that. And the House of Representatives chose John Quincy Adams.
Okay, but we're concluding we're all on the same page that we live in a democratic republic that's better than a democracy, and therefore it is okay that the Democrats said we're not going to have an election to see who our presidential candidate should be. We're just going to pick Kamala, and it's okay that Donald Trump says drop out.
Well, I'm saying it's the reality that we live in, and it's the prerogative of the people in those parties to say whatever they want.
Okay.
I think it would be better if we had a system that had tighter limits on what parties are allowed and not allowed to do.
That's not the question, Porter.
Think about your governor's race in California, Shawn, right? There's the last I looked, there was like 15 Democrats running for governor of California right now, and there's 2 Republicans. And the way that California law is set up is the top 2 vote getters, regardless of party, are going to go to the general election ballot. So the Republicans are being smart because they're only letting 2 Republicans run. That's the most that could be on the ballot anyway. So they're saying if you're a Republican in California, choose between one of these 2.
Yeah.
And the Democrats are letting 15 people put their names out there. Well, they're going to split all of that vote among all of the Democrats in the state of California.
Yeah.
And the Democrats might end up with no Democrats in the final election for governor.
That's not going to happen, but yeah.
Of course it could happen, Shawn.
Seriously?
Of course that could happen.
That would be amazing.
There's like 40% of California is Republican, right? So let's say that 40% of California that's Republican splits their votes between those 2 Republicans.
No, I get the math, yeah, but it just seems like there's too many Democrats here to make that possible, but that would be incredible.
Unless somebody steps in and coordinates in some way and persuades some of those 15 Democrats to get out of the race, that definitely could happen, because unless one of those Democrats gets above 20% or closer to 30%, then that other Republican could take that other spot. So
interesting, huh?
So
People
maybe I
probably
don't.
will drop out.
Someone's going to have to drop out. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. Like, people might not love the idea of the parties telling candidates you're in, you're out, but somebody has to fill that role, because if they don't, the voice of the people is too spread out in order to. Something has to organize the vote in a way that reflects the will of, I don't know, like the party or something like that.
Matt,
Like,
we're all on the same page on this, but one day you ought to do a topic to teach us all about, like, why is democracy bad? Oh, that's what you said. Those are your words. And why is
yeah.
democratic republic good?
Okay. I don't know if I would go Democratic Republic is good, but I could tell you why democracy is bad. What I would say is good,
Later.
Shawn. I think I've advocated for this from the very beginning, is theocracy is good. I want a king Jesus to rule the world. I don't want.
There's no
I
way
don't,
you're
I
right.
don't think
There's no way
I
you're
don't think any voting is good. Get rid of all that voting stuff.
Want the
right.
theocratic totalitarian communism is what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You idiots. Oh, sorry. Did I say that? We voted. The
Wear
Lord.
that as your party affiliation when you register to vote.
I want the kind of democracy where it's like, so-and-so has been called to be this. All in favor say aye. Like, do you sustain them? You can
Matt,
raise your hand or you can oppose.
You do not want that until the Lord comes. You do not want that today. You do not.
This is why I have so much sympathy for the Iranian leaders and the Iranian system. I'm like,
Shut up.
that's not so bad. It's not so bad.
Oh, dude,
to have
don't.
a theocracy.
Don't.
All right, here's the. Wait, do I get points?
Listeners, Matt is joking.
No, I'm really not joking. I'm fine with the Iran system.
You have to tell them you're joking. My future voters might listen to this podcast.
Oh.
I don't want to get put on blast in 20 years for endorsing authoritarian theocracy.
I will make it clear that my views do not reflect the views of Shawn or Porter. All right. So do I get the points for saying something you both strongly disagree with and don't want to be affiliated with?
Maybe you get kicked in the face for saying that, but no votes.
All right. Here's the big question. Now, in fairness, this global survey is like not just developed nations, right? There's undeveloped nations in this global survey as well, but it's still worth talking about. Okay. So a recent global survey that had 23,000 participants found that 31% of Gen Z men agree that a wife should.
Matt, I thought this was just American. Now my answer's all skewed. I thought this was just American Gen Z.
No, it's global Gen Z.
That's a hugely important distinction because of culture. Culture affects this in a huge way. Religion and culture does.
Well, I'll tell you, I was really surprised by the data across countries. But finish the intro.
Sorry.
So 31% of Gen Z men agree that a wife should always obey her husband, and 1/3 say a husband should have the final word on important decisions. So attitudes in places like the United States are much less supportive of these kinds of ideas than they are in other countries. The number in the United States is 15%, just so you know.
Oh, thank you for bringing that in. Okay.
Contrary to what many might believe, younger men are more sexist than older men. So here's the big question. Does our theology support traditional gender norms?
And I have to start with, I told my wife about this data, and she said wisely, it's probably just because most of these Gen Z men have not been married long enough, if at all.
That's probably true.
That's
because
a good point. Yeah.
It's not just a generation, it's also age.
Well said, Sister Porter.
Yeah. Okay, so old men seem to understand that the wife shouldn't always obey her husband. And old people seem to agree that a husband should not have the final word on important decisions.
Okay, but your question is, what's the doctrine regarding gender roles? That's your question.
I know a lot of people. Yeah, I know a lot of people that will quote to me the proclamation to the world on the family, and they'll say that it says the father's place is to preside. And sure, it says equal partners, but sometimes somebody's got to make a decision. Oh, and by the way, the Bible says, wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands. And so they'll say, look, this is theology. That what they're saying isn't sexist. What they're saying is consistent with our theology. And I wonder, is it?
You know how in Scripture sometimes when it says he, it's referring to mankind, right? So for example, your first point, should the gender norm, or like I looked up what are the traditional gender norms. Like, for example, we all agree that a traditional gender norm would be men should be the primary provider. Is that a pretty traditional gender norm?
Yep.
Okay. So if I look in scripture, I mean, I see a scripture in Timothy 5:8, but if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel.
Mm-hmm. So,
So,
that's a biblical support of a traditional gender norm.
so that's your question: is what scriptural evidence, or what's the Latter-day lens on this? But I think you can take, like, the scripture. It talks about he, but I think oftentimes he is referred to mankind, and so I think it's clear that a woman who is the primary provider is under the same obligation. It would be an infidel not providing, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
as you were reading that, I was thinking it sounds like this is a condemnation against allowing your children to go unprovided for.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the
So,
Doctrine and Covenants says that a man is supposed to provide for the spiritual and physical needs. I should have looked up the verse.
Ephesians 5:23 says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church."
Yeah, so what do you guys think about this idea? I feel like as I was growing up, especially when I was young and early in my married age, I felt this need to provide for my wife and provide for my future family. And there were things I wanted to do, like you might not remember this, Shawn, but there was a time when I was like, we should have a rock band. And I was going to learn to play bass guitar because I wanted to be in a rock band and perform. But then at some point,
What?
I know, right? You might not remember because it was a fleeting thought. Because then I was like, but really, I should probably finish college and prepare for a life where I'm going to provide for my future family. And I think that there's something in men that if they feel this need to provide for their family, it helps them to grow up and become the kind of men they should be and set aside some of their childish, like weird. And I don't feel like women need that same thing. And so I do think there's something there where God's telling men it's your job to provide that actually helps them to become the kinds of people they should be. But I think for some people that gets twisted into you should be in charge and you should be in control. And that's the part where I would say, no, our theology ends there.
I like that. I can go with that. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I mean, those who twist it to think that they are somehow have dominion over, like that's a blatant misunderstanding of scripture. There's nowhere that it says, like, if you study the traditional meaning of the word head, like the first words of the Bible, the head God of all the gods gathered the people, you're going to have a better understanding of what for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church. There are councils, and then, like you said, so anyway, so I agree with you that people are taking those who take this and justify abuse or dominion. That's an evil. Yeah, that's infidel actions right there. Yeah.
Yeah, I read all these, especially biblical scriptures about this, and the language can be bothersome. It can, especially once you get into like Timothy, that women should just be quiet, and I don't know. I don't pretend to have a good explanation for how that reconciles into our
I've got a good one
theology.
there, but I've got a really good, I think, reading on that, but I
But
think it's a tangent. But if you look at again, this list of, you asked the question, Matt, the traditional gender norms. So I did kind of what are the typical ones. Another one is show strength and independence and protective abilities. I do agree that physically, generally, men are more physically strong than women, and so I do think that we ought to have an obligation. Our job is to protect our our our, our
yeah,
spouses. Do you
I mean,
not? Do you agree with that one or no?
I know fathers with physical disabilities or in wheelchairs or.
Yeah, they still should protect physically. They should
I
protect
guess,
their
yeah.
spouses.
I think here's how I read these scriptures. I read them, and then I think about D&C 121:41, like what you were saying, Shawn. No power or influence can or ought to be maintained by virtue of the priesthood or by husbandhood or fatherhood, only by persuasion, by long-suffering, by gentleness and meekness, and by love unfeigned, by kindness and pure knowledge, which shall greatly enlarge the soul, without hypocrisy and without guile. I feel like I read these scriptures and I think it is my responsibility to become a leader, a spiritual and physical leader for my family, not that it is my family's responsibility to obey me.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get that mixed up, you are exercising unrighteous dominion, and God will not be with you. But if you stay on the side of, okay, this is the type of person that I need to be. I need to be wise, and I need to be loving, and I need to be, a source of spiritual guidance or steadiness. If we're not reading scriptures every day, that's on me. We need to be doing that.
Well said. Yeah, I love that. You redefine the definition of what a leader, what it means to lead, right? You just defined it by the Doctrine and Covenants. Yeah, you have to be patient, kind, and long-suffering. D&C 6825, inasmuch as parents have children in Zion, they shall teach them and understand the doctrine of repentance and faith. So as a leader, you're supposed to teach faith and repentance. So that scriptural definition of leadership has nothing to do with who has a final say and who's the decision maker and who's the boss, and nothing. There's no definition in scripture about that. So I love that you just redefined it according to truth.
Well,
that's great.
And that's why I think our theology is the best theology, because you can look in the Bible and you can be a mainline or a Protestant Christian, right? And you can look at the Bible and say, God is telling me to be dominant and men are in charge and things like that.
Yep.
But it's really hard to do that if you look at the whole of revealed scripture, especially the standard works, the latter-day revelation. So I don't see any place in our theology for this idea that men are in charge, women need to obey, the husband should have the final say. I think that stuff would be stuff where Christianity, like mainstream Christianity, has gotten lost. And the Lord doesn't want us to think in those terms. And so that's why I say our theology is better in that regard.
But they're also all going to go to that one verse that Porter referenced that does say that, like in the church situation, the women should be quiet and men should, listen, don't question the man. And that needs some explanation. So maybe later, Matt, in a different topic, we could do a deeper dive into that, because I think there's a good explanation for that. But that is the one that most evangelicals will take to conclude, I'm the boss, you must obey me.
Well, and that's why I say if there are members of our church who think that they're the boss, if men think that they're the boss, then I think that they need to read more modern day, latter day revelation, because that's something that's not part of our theology.
But also, Matt, do you also agree that there are differences between men and women, and that there are roles that the Lord intends us to play? For example, the protective role, or do you not agree with that?
Well, I believe that the proclamation to the world on the family is an inspired statement of inspired principles, right?
Yeah.
So I 100% don't find any fault with where it says like a father's place is to provide, and that a mother is primarily responsible for the nurturing of the children. But I think equally important in all of that is that these are things that a couple shares as equal partners.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the most important thing.
Important part. I love that.
So to what Porter was saying before, there are men that are probably better at nurturing than their wives. And so why wouldn't you as a couple say, you know what, in our family, the husband is the better nurturer.
Yeah.
So we're going to let him take care of that.
Yeah. Totally beautiful. Yeah.
I think sometimes we'll look at these as like instructions for the other person in that relationship. I'll see, my responsibility is to provide, her responsibility is to nourish. And I think, okay, that means I don't need to nourish and she doesn't need to provide. But what it's really doing is instructing you to become and do certain things. That's what this gospel is all about. When it's saying the father's purpose is to preside and provide, it's saying become yourself a presider and a provider. It's not saying anything about what your wife should or should not do.
Oh,
and
nice.
Same with being, a nourishing parent.
Yeah.
Porter, Gen Z, the Gen Z is a bunch of weirdos with weird ideas. You just saved him, dude.
It's because I've been married. I'm about to have kid number 2. I've been married for 5 years.
Before you got married, you were this like weird, like I'm the boss of all women.
An durable misogynist. No, it's probably because I was not that I did get married.
Well, that's an honest take.
I'd love to see the man on the third date. He's like, so when are you going to start obeying me? Because that's when this relationship's going to start moving forward.
Maybe the Gen Z being more sexist is that we've had a lot of prophets talk about how these younger people really need to get serious about, finding a spouse, especially young men. And maybe there's a correlation there.
But Matt, when you clarified that this survey was international and only 15% of Gen Z men think this.
In the U.S.
In the U.S.? Like
Yeah.
that means we don't have a problem with this in the U.S. Internationally, we have a problem with this.
But we have a global church. It is a global problem.
Oh, great point. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. God.
15's enough. 15%'s enough for me to not like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
that's
point
pretty
too.
high.
That's true
Yeah.
as well.
Hey, well, thanks, you guys and listeners. Thanks for joining us. Let us know what you think of the podcast, and we'll talk to you again next week. It's always sad to say goodbye, but we hope you'll join us again next week. New episodes drop each Wednesday. In the meantime, subscribe to the podcast, give us a like, and visit our website for past episodes. You can comment on the show at realmormonism@gmail.com. Thank you for making us one of the most listened to podcasts. We love our listeners.